I'm going to present my research on the yellow-breasted barbet. So I study their social behavior and also the acoustic communication. So I'm not going to present myself again, but for this PhD project, I studied the duetting and chorusing behavior in the yellow-breasted barbet because more generally, I'm interested about this behavior, the vocal duet and chorus in birds. And I got a grant for this project, which is so it's funded by the National Center of Science in Poland. And in Djibouti, I have a partnership with an association named Decon Association. It's a it's an association for wildlife conservation and protection in Djibouti, and they help me with all the logistical aspect of the fieldwork. So to introduce my topic, I will give you a definition about what is a vocal duet. So to make it simple is the fact that two individuals will combine non-randomly their vocalization to perform one single vocal performances. And as an example, here I will show you a video of a duet of rosy-patched bushthrush. It's a duetting species that is common in Djibouti and also in Horn of Africa, East Africa. So the female has a black patch on the throat and the male is only red. So here it's their duet. Oh, sorry. I have to use my, okay. So here's a duet where male and female alternate their vocalization. And so the duetting behavior can be considered as a collective signal, which means that actually the features, the acoustic feature of each individual and the interaction between this acoustic feature will constitute a new signal on it. And so duetting and chorusing behavior have been investigated in different bird species. So usually the work can be divided in two kinds of fields. You have the study that try to understand why birds perform duets, and other study that focus more on how they perform it. So what are the function and how do they coordinate the vocalization? So the mechanisms of song coordination. So scientists found that there are different function of duetting behavior, but the main function is to defend its territory and also to advertise about the mated status and maintain the pair bond, because usually the duets are performed by a mated pair. And regarding the mechanism of song coordination, so you have several studies that try to understand the mechanism in like species that have very nice and well-coordinated duets. So, for example, you have different wren species from Central America and South America, in which the researcher have found that the birds use a kind of syllab by syllab adjustment. So they are using autogenous and heterogeneous feedback. It means that each individual is modifying its rhythm of singing and choose the vocalization according to what its partner is doing, so they can adapt in real time to the partner. But you have a different strategy actually. The syllab by syllab adjustment, it's not the only strategy that birds can use to be synchronized. So there are different strategy and you have different form of duet. In some species, the acoustic duet are not that precisely coordinated, like we saw in the rosy-patched bushthrush. They are very coordinated, but in other species, it's not the case, but still the birds try to synchronize their song. But these species with weak song coordination have been less investigated. And also the chorusing species. So there are less studies about the chorusing species, how actually several birds from a same group can synchronize their song. We can imagine that if it's already difficult for two individuals to be well coordinated, so what happens when you have 5, 8 individuals that try to synchronize their song? So in the case of group acoustic display with several individuals, we think that in order to be synchronized, the individual should share a specific signal, an intra-group signal that could help the group member to be synchronized. And this is the question I'm interested in: which kind of intra-group signal a group of birds might use to be coordinated. And I choose the African barbets as a good model. So to present this family of birds, I think it's quite interesting, because so you have more than 40 species of birds of barbets in Africa. They occupy different kind of environments. And within the same family, you will find some species, they live in single pairs, some others live in group, and even some live in colony breeding. And when we look at their acoustic communication, some are non-duetting species, so they do not coordinate their song. Some are duetting species, and you have few species that are who live in group and they perform chorus. I also choose to work on barbet because before the start of my PhD, I was part of another project in which I was sent to the field in Cameroon and in South Africa to record different barbet species. And so here you can see in the picture different barbets that I recorded. So you have, for example, the yellow-spotted barbet in Cameroon, the green barbet and crested barbet in South Africa. And of course, in Djibouti, I recorded the yellow-breasted barbets. So to me, I really like this family of birds. I'm like, they are nice and their behavior are quite interesting. And another thing that also made me choose these birds is that it was found that the duetting and chorusing barbet use pre-duet notes during a kind of greeting ceremony to initiate the duet and chorus. So just before starting their group display, they use some specific vocalization to introduce this group display. So it was found in several duetting and chorusing barbet species. And for my PhD, I chose to work on the yellow-breasted barbet. So my field work is in Djibouti. So on the left, you have more or less the area in yellow where you can find the yellow-breasted barbet in Africa. So it's a non-migratory bird species that live in parent small social group. It's a territorial bird, so each group defends its territory throughout the year, and it emits loud vocal duet and chorus. So there is a sexual dimorphism that is visible. The male has a black patch on the throat and not the female. So here's a duet. So this species is interesting because there was not much data on the behavior of this species. So we have a lack of knowledge regarding the breeding ecology, the cavity roosting behavior, and other kind of social behavior. Also, the vocal repertoire is poorly known for the species. And also the fact that they use this pre-duet notes at the beginning of duet and chorus, we do not know what is the function and what they are doing exactly. And finally, I was also interested about the possibility that these birds might perform some kind of multimodal signal. So a multimodal signal is basically when an animal will combine, for example, vocalization, so the sound, with specific posture or gesture. So we call it a visual display. So when they combine visual and acoustic display, it's a multimodal signal. And this kind of multimodal signal has been observed in other barbet species like the Darno barbet, but also I think it's the black-collared barbet, if I remember. And so we were interested also to find out if the yellow-breasted barbet also use multimodal signal. So the aim of this project is to get more information about the yellow-breasted barbet, its social system, and the cooperative behavior, understand the function of the pre-duet notes, and also try to describe the song coordination in this species and the function of duet and chorus. So in Djibouti, I have two fieldwork areas. The Jalelo area, which is not far from the capital, and more in the south, close to Somalia and Ethiopia, there is the Asamo region, which is much more mountainous. So I choose these two areas because these are protected area. So it was decided to be a protected area mainly to preserve the habitat for natural for antelope there. So here are some pictures I made of the local antelopes. So it's like the typical fauna from Horn of Africa. You can also find a lot of bird species, even if it's a dry country. You have, for example, the Somali ostrich, the Egyptian vulture, and many other bird species. So to start about this project, I will share with you my data regarding the communal roosting. So this is how it looks like from the ground. So this is the typical habitat of the yellow-breasted barbet. So usually they live along dry water courses. And they choose these kind of steep, sandy riverbanks to dig their cavity. So they use this cavity each night to sleep inside. So this is how it looks like. I have a short video that I made with an endoscope. So the cavities consist of one entrance, then you have a long corridor, and then there is a kind of room, like a kind of chamber where the barbet sleep. So they also use this cavity as nesting site. So in Djibouti, we found this year, like recently, we found two different moments where barbets were nesting in September, November 2022, and also in February, April 2023. And I was in the field during the February and April, so I was able to monitor 11 groups. And so I get data about their nesting during the nesting period. And so I found that this barbet laid 1 egg per year, and it's 1 egg per day, sorry, and it can be up to 8 eggs. What was interesting is that actually adults sleep with the eggs and the chicks. So they do not divide the cavity, like there will be 1 cavity for the adults to sleep and 1 cavity for the chicks. Oops, sorry. So they sleep all together with the chicks. And here, so is the recordings of hatchlings and then nestling few days after. So I mixed the two. So at the beginning, you will hear the soft song of hatchlings and then the nestlings. So this is how it look like in the area. So each group will have a specific territory, and within each territory there will be a specific roosting cavity site, and it's always along the dry river. So usually they start to gather around their cavity at dusk, at the end of the day, and just before they used to have a communal sunbath. So this is mainly to remove parasites, so prevent the spread of disease within the cavity. So this is a view of the Jalilo area and the localization of 3 roosting sites with the number of individuals that occupy the sites. So what we did during our project, we catch the barbets, so each group to put color rings on them. So to do that, we put a mist net in front of the cavity early at the morning, so before the barbet wake up. So you can see on the picture the pole, but probably not the mist net because it's really thin. And we took the blood sample. Also, we note the GPS coordinate of each group. So yeah, when they go out from the cavity, they just flew into the mist net. So it's not like a very difficult bird species to catch. And so in total, we do 3 different catching stations in 2019, 2020, and 2022. We couldn't go to the field work during 2021 because of the pandemic. So in total, we got 139 birds from 20 different cavity sites. Most of them were captured just one time, but 16 were recaptured. And 14 of them, we got them exactly at the same site, so from the previous catching session. And in general, so the group, the number of individual per group could be from a single pair to up to 11 individual. So it was quite variable. So we also took different kind of measurements when we were catching them. And we found, for example, that the males are usually heavier than the female. And we didn't find any difference in terms of weight variation across the 3 years of catching. But what is interesting is that if we compare our mean value of weight with the values gave in the page of the species in Bird of the World from Cornell Lab, so they said that the yellow-breasted barbet's weight is from 44 to 64. But in our population of barbet, the individuals are quite light comparing to this value. So we think that maybe it was because the area where we sampled the individual is more dry. So maybe this is the reason, or maybe it's just because in Djibouti is the subspecies Somalicus that it may be lighter than the formal one. And regarding the duet and chorus, so in 2019 and 2020, I conducted with my team some playback experiment. So the idea was to go to each territory and broadcast playback. So it could be playback of duet song, chorus song, or male solo song. So we tried both natural song who were recorded a few years ago, or synthesized song that we created. And so I filmed with video camera the reaction of the birds. So once they listen the playbacks, they will come and reply, and I filmed the way that they answer to the playback. So the idea was to record the way they initiate their group display. So remember at the beginning in the introduction, when I explained the preduet notes. So this is how it sounds with the yellow-breasted barbet. So in the yellow-breasted barbet, these preduet notes are called chup notes. So you can hear there was a difference between these chup notes and the rest of the song sequence. So what to analyze the data, we decided to do is to divide the individual in two categories. So we have the leader, which is the individual that initiates the duet or chorus. So it's the individual that will give the first vocalization, and then the follower is the rest of the group that will join the initiator. So they will reply to the leader, and this is how the duet and chorus will be created. So we think that dividing in such way the individual was a good way to describe their behavior, because it's known that usually within the group, a leader is necessary to induce a joint action from other members, and we call it the leader-follower strategy. And we published an article about the study on the way that birds initiate their song. And we found that actually there is no just one type of troop note, but there are two variations of these troop notes. You have the low troop notes and the high troop notes. So once we got this difference between the low troop note and high troop note, we calculate the frequency of usage of introductory sequence that contain only high troop notes, only low troop notes, or a mixture of high and low troop notes. And we did it for the leader and followers. And when we look at the leader category, we found that half of the introductory vocal sequence contained only high troop notes, and the second half, it was a mixture of low and high troop notes. And for the followers, it was sensibly the same, but there is a high percentage also of introductory vocal sequence that contain only low troop notes. And when we counted the number of troop notes per introductory vocal sequence and compare it between the two categories, we found that the leading individual actually produce a high number of high troop notes comparing to the follower. And we did not find any significant difference in the number of low troop notes between leader and follower. Regarding the multimodal display, so for this species, the visual display consists of the tail raised and fan. And what we did, it's like we counted the number of, we isolated first the number of individuals who were recorded doing this visual display, and then we measured when exactly they do this visual display. So in the graph, you have the introductory vocal sequence of troop notes in dark gray, and then you have the duration of the song sequence. And in red, you have the moment where the tail display is used. And so you can see that the tail display is used at the beginning, so when the birds are initiating their song, so when they are producing the troop notes. So we can say that this is actually a multimodal display because you have the combination of the troop notes and the tail display. And then we, again, with this leader and follower category, we compare the way that birds introduce their song. So whether they use only troop notes, so this is in black, acoustic only. If they use troop notes with the tail display, it's multimodal in red, and no display in white. It's when the bird do not use the tail display and do not emit troop notes. So they just start their song sequence. And we found that half of the leaders were used the multimodal display, and second half acoustic only. And the majority of followers, they just use the troop notes only, and some of them do not even start their song with specific vocal introductory sequence. So, and according to the percent residual, we found that the leader are positively associated with multimodal display, and the follower are positively associated with no display. So to summarize, we found that the leader individual tend to combine troop notes with specific tail display, which consists of correspond to a multimodal display. So it was also observed in other barbet species. And for example, in one study from Throat and Horn, they said that the most active birds that they considered as the leading individual during this initiation of duet and chorus was the bird with the knoting tail, and it was never reported that more than one bird in the group displayed in such way. And if I remember, it was for the black-colored barbet that they describe it. So it's quite consistent with what we observe in the yellow-breasted barbet. We also found that the leader used more high troop notes than followers, and that sometimes followers do not introduce their song with troop notes. So here it's the start of a chorus of 3 individuals. So you will see the birds initiating their chorus with this troop note, and some of them will even use the tail display, but it will be quite quick, the visual display. So actually, this troop note is this intra-group signal that it's used as a specific signal to start the group vocal display. So either duet and chorus. And we recorded few times some solo from lone individual, and when they do solo songs, they do not use troop notes. So we also monitored the daily vocal activity of the birds, because so in this species they are known to perform duet and chorus, but we wanted also to have more information about their vocal repertoire and the different vocalization they use even when they are not duetting and chorusing. So to do that, we use it Song Meter Micro. So from Wildlife Acoustic, it's autonomous recorder, so we can put it in the field and they will record during several days, even several weeks. So we put one song meter close by each cavity site that we know where we catch birds, so we know which group we were recorded. Here it's a map that is like, it's an example of so we did this passive acoustic monitoring in 2022. So it's in Jalelo. The small yellow circle are the cavity location, and for each cavity that has a specific number, you have the group number, and the red star are the location of the song meter. And then you have here the ring color. So basically on the map is when we were able to observe the bird we caught with binocular, we were capable of identifying the rings. We noted on the map where we saw the birds. So it gave us an idea about how far the birds can go away from the cavity. And we can see, for example, around the group 2, 3, and 4, that the group number 4, the individual from the group number 4 tend to come close to 3 and 2. And the same for the group number 2. So it's interesting information because it helps us to document the way that the different group interact. But most of the time they tend to stay around their roosting cavity. So this is the 4 different vocalization type that we were able to identify for the yellow-breasted barbet, which are not part of the duet or the troop notes. So you have the loud cohesion call. So this vocalization is used usually by birds to localize each other. So it's a kind of intra-group communication. So it's served when birds are isolated and they are looking for the rest of the group. They use this kind of vocalization. And what's happened usually is that the group members that listen to this call will either reply with the same call or they will approach the emitter. Then you have the first type of soft call. So we think it has similar function that the previous vocalization, but it's for individual that are more close. So for example, during foraging, they might use this call, or also when there is a threat around the roosting cavity and they are around the roosting cavity, they will communicate with this using this soft call. Then you have the alarm call, which is quite loud. And finally, another kind of soft call. And this last vocalization type, so they use it during the nest relief, for example, or when they feed the chicks. And we also recorded this vocalization sometime after duet and chorus. So it might have also a function in affiliative behavior, maybe to reduce the stress within the group or maintain or reinforce the bond between the group member. And here it's the vocal activity during the day. So we measure it only with the loud signal, so the alarm call, the cohesion call, and the group vocal display, so duet or chorus. And what we found is that the birds are active mainly early in the morning, so from 6 to 9 a.m. So it's quite common in birds to vocalize more in the morning comparing to the rest of the day. And we found also something interesting. So we calculate the conditional probability that group vocal display, duet or chorus could be preceded by the emission of cohesion call within 2 minutes before the start of this group display. Because as I mentioned earlier, this cohesion call serves for the group member to localize each other. And what we found is that so when birds are like the group are dispersed and they want to, for example, answer a playback, so they have to gather first before starting a duet or chorus. So they might use cohesion call before to localize each other, then they will reunite, and then they will start a chorus, for example, or a duet. So to summarize, so this is like the typical behavior of the yellow-breasted barbet when performing duet and chorus. So if the group are dispersed and the individual need to localize each other, they will use cohesion call. Then once they are reunited, they will start their by emitting choop notes, and the leading individual could also use the tail display. This will be the start of the group display, so the duet chorus. Then you will have the duet and chorus sequence, and sometime after this this chorus, you can have some soft vocalization that could have a function in post-conflict affiliative behavior. So you can see that some part of the vocalization are only intra-group vocalization, has intra-group function. The duet and chorus is serve both to intra and between group interaction. And finally, the soft vocalization, it's intra-group function. And now what I'm currently doing is I analyze the rhythm of singing of individual when they are singing. So I'm interested to know whether the individual can adapt the rhythm of singing according to the partner. And also I would like to know if the acoustic feature of the duet and chorus, so the duration and the rhythm of singing, could depend on the thread perceived. So for example, if, I don't know, a group of individuals want to reply to another group which has a lot of individual inside the group, maybe they will increase the duration of the chorus. That could be perceived more threatening, for example. So this is my colleague that helped me in the field, and I would like to thank them. I would like also to thank my supervisor, and of course, thank you for your attention. And if you want to learn more about the project, I have a website in which you will find more detail about the project, some videos, and also there is a lot of pictures and videos of the wildlife of Djibouti. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mathieu, for this great and very interesting talk. Maybe you could try to do a French translation.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
Donc pour résumer un petit peu ce que j'ai présenté, donc je fais mon doctorat sur le barbican perlé. Donc je m'intéresse à la communication chez le barbican perlé. Je vais juste revenir. Donc, j'avais introduit rapidement ce que c'était qu'un duo. Donc, un duo, peut se définir comme le fait que deux individus, en général, le mâle et la femelle, vont coordonner leur vocalisation. Et cette coordination, en fait, va donner un seul et même signal. Et donc, j'avais dit que les duos et les chœurs, donc les chœurs, c'est en fait lorsque plusieurs individus vont coordonner leur vocalisation, donc sert en général à la défense du territoire. Et donc, j'avais expliqué rapidement que dans les études, en général, les scientifiques cherchaient à comprendre la fonction et aussi la façon dont les individus se coordonnaient. Et donc, moi, ce qui m'intéresse, c'est, en fait, j'avais choisi le barbican perlé parce que justement, il y avait, d'un côté, on avait peu de données sur cette espèce, mais en plus de ça, comme beaucoup d'autres barbicans qui font des duos et des chœurs, le barbican perlé introduit, en fait, initie ces duos et ces chœurs avec des vocalisations spécifiques qu'on appelle notes de pré-duo. Mais jusqu'à maintenant, en fait, on savait juste qu'il faisait ça, mais on n'avait aucune information sur pourquoi et comment il le faisait. Du coup, c'est ce qui m'a donné aussi envie d'aller étudier cette espèce à Djibouti. Et donc voilà, moi, je me suis intéressé à cette espèce pour 3 points, parce que déjà, on connaissait peu de choses sur leurs comportements sociaux, on connaissait peu de choses sur le répertoire vocal et donc sur la façon dont ils avaient de se coordonner en duo. Et aussi, ce qui m'intéressait sur cette espèce, c'était de savoir s'ils utilisaient un signal multimodal, c'est-à-dire qu'ils combinaient leur vocalisation avec un signal visuel qui peut être par exemple une posture spécifique. Et donc, j'ai présenté ensuite les endroits à Djibouti où je faisais l'étude. Donc, ce sont 2 endroits assez désertiques où les barbicans sont une espèce assez commune, les barbicans perlés. Et donc, les barbicans perlés vivent le long d'ouettes, donc de rivières asséchées. Et en fait, ils utilisent je me perds maintenant avec les Français. En fait, ils utilisent les parois sableuses le long des ouettes pour creuser leurs cavités. Donc là, j'avais montré une vidéo des cavités. Donc, ils utilisent ces cavités à la fois comme site pour passer la nuit. Donc, chaque nuit, ils rentrent dans ces cavités tous ensemble. Donc, un seul groupe va rentrer dans une seule cavité. Et récemment, j'ai aussi observé que ces cavités étaient utilisées comme site de reproduction où ils vont pondre et élever les petits. Donc ça, c'est un petit peu une image schématique de comment ça se passe sur le terrain. Donc chaque groupe a un territoire particulier et ce territoire est organisé autour de ces cavités. Du coup, pour le projet, ce qu'on a fait dans un premier temps, c'est qu'on a capturé les différents groupes qu'on avait observés. Donc, l'idée, c'était de les baguer pour pouvoir les reconnaître ensuite, et puis pour savoir d'une année à l'autre s'ils restaient ou pas sur les mêmes territoires. Donc, on a capturé une centaine d'oiseaux. On s'est rendu compte d'une année à l'autre que la majorité des oiseaux, on les voyait plus. Donc, probablement, il y avait de la dispersion. Par contre, on en a recapturé, on en a recapturé 16. Donc, 14 étaient toujours aux mêmes endroits. Donc, en général, ce qui s'est passé, c'est que d'une année à l'autre, dans chaque groupe, il restait au moins un individu de l'année précédente. Du coup, ensuite, bon, on a trouvé que les mâles étaient un peu plus gros que les femelles. Et en ce qui concerne l'étude des duos et des chœurs chez cette espèce, donc l'expérience consistait dans un premier temps à propager des sons en playback sur chaque territoire pour provoquer une réaction défensive des groupes testés. Et l'idée, c'était de filmer leurs réactions pour pouvoir justement à la fois avoir l'information sur leur réponse vocale, mais aussi avoir des images pour savoir si effectivement il y avait un signal visuel qui était utilisé. Donc ensuite, ici, donc, je montrais en quoi consistaient les notes de pré-duo. Donc, c'est des notes qui sont juste avant la séquence de duo. Donc, j'avais montré cet exemple. Donc, on a entendu juste au début. Et du coup, ce que j'ai fait, c'est que pour comprendre un peu comment les individus, enfin les oiseaux utilisent ces notes de pré-duo, j'ai divisé les individus en deux catégories. Donc, le leader, c'est celui qui initie les duos et les chœurs, c'est le premier qui va lancer le signal, et les followers, donc les suiveurs, c'est ceux qui vont rejoindre le leader pour créer en fait le duo ou le chœur. Et du coup, ce que j'avais trouvé, c'est que en fait, ces notes de pré-duo, donc qui s'appellent des choop notes, il y en a deux variations. On en a qui sont des low choop notes, c'est-à-dire qu'elles sont assez soft, et puis des high choop notes, donc qui sont, on va dire, un peu plus fortes. Et donc, dans un premier temps, j'avais calculé la fréquence d'utilisation des séquences, donc des séquences d'introduction qui contiennent uniquement des high choop notes ou des low choop notes, ou la fréquence aussi des séquences introductives qui contiennent les deux types de choop notes. Et j'avais trouvé que la majorité des leaders, enfin que les leaders utilisaient introduisaient leur son soit avec uniquement des high choop notes, ou avec un mix de high et de low choop. Et pour les followers, donc soit ils utilisent pareil uniquement des high choop, soit des low choop, ou alors une combinaison en fait de high et low choop. Mais en fait, on peut voir que les followers ont aussi une tendance plus importante à utiliser uniquement des low choop comparé aux leaders. Et ensuite, ce que j'avais fait, c'est que j'avais calculé enfin, j'avais cherché à savoir s'il y avait une différence au niveau de ces séquences introductives dans le nombre de high choop et de low choop utilisés. Et j'avais trouvé qu'il y avait une différence significative entre les leaders et followers sur le nombre de high choop utilisés. Donc, les séquences des leaders étaient beaucoup plus longues et contenaient beaucoup plus de high choop que les followers. Et par contre, en ce qui concerne les low choop, il n'y avait pas de différence. Et enfin, j'avais mis en évidence que les individus utilisent aussi un signal visuel. Donc, ils relèvent la queue et mettent en fait, leur queue en éventail. Donc, c'est un mouvement assez rapide, et ils le font en général au moment où ils utilisent justement les choop notes, donc durant la séquence sonore introductive, pour initier les duos et les chœurs. Et donc là, ce que j'avais montré, c'est que les leaders ont tendance à utiliser soit le signal multimodal, donc à combiner les choop notes avec un signal visuel avec la queue, soit de commencer leur séquence sonore uniquement avec des choop notes, alors que les followers, eux, majoritairement, ils vont uniquement utiliser les choop notes. Et certains d'entre eux, en fait, n'utilisent même pas de choop notes. En fait, ils commencent juste leur séquence de son, leur séquence de chant. Donc là, c'est un petit peu le summary le résumé, pardon, de ce que j'avais trouvé. Donc effectivement, que les leaders utilisent un signal multimodal, que les leaders aussi sont ceux qui utilisent plus de high choop, et que parfois les followers n'introduisent pas leur son, leur chant. Donc là, j'avais montré un exemple. Et ensuite, je m'étais intéressé aussi aux autres vocalisations du barbican perlé et aussi à l'activité journalière, l'activité vocale journalière. Et ce que j'avais trouvé, donc, c'est que en dehors des choop notes et des chants en duo et en chœur, ils ont aussi différents types de vocalisation. Il y a les cris de contact ou les cris de cohésion qu'ils utilisent en général lorsque le groupe est dispersé, donc les individus cherchent à se retrouver. Ils utilisent les cris de cohésion. Ensuite, lorsqu'ils sont, par exemple, en train de chercher de la nourriture en groupe ou qui sont proches les uns des autres, ils peuvent utiliser des soft calls de type 1. Donc ça, c'est vraiment de la communication de proximité. Ensuite, lorsqu'ils perçoivent une menace, ils utilisent des cris d'alarme. Et enfin, il y a un autre type de soft call de type 2 qu'ils utilisent pendant les relèves au nid, aussi lorsqu'ils veulent attirer les petits pour leur donner à manger. Et j'avais aussi enregistré ces soft calls de type 2. Parfois, ils sont utilisés après un duo ou un chœur. Donc, je suppose aussi qu'ils ont une fonction pour maintenir, on va dire, les liens entre les groupes, entre les individus qui sont membres du même groupe. Ils peuvent aussi servir à réduire le stress, peut-être. Hop. Et au niveau de l'activité vocale durant la journée, j'avais montré qu'en fait, c'est principalement le matin qui sont actifs. Donc pour ça, j'avais compté le nombre de duos et de chœurs et aussi les cris de cohésion et les cris d'alarme qu'on avait enregistrés avec les enregistreurs automatiques. Et donc, on s'était aperçu que c'était principalement le matin. Et donc voilà, c'était un résumé en gros de la façon dont un duo ou un chœur est produit durant comment dire, durant la journée, en fait, l'enchaînement des différentes vocalisations lorsqu'il y a un duo ou un chœur qui est produit. Donc, si les individus sont dispersés, ils vont d'abord vouloir se rassembler. Donc, pour ça, ils vont utiliser des cris de cohésion. Une fois qu'ils sont rassemblés, pour pouvoir commencer, il faut qu'il y ait un leader qui donne le signal, donc notamment avec des choop notes et un signal visuel avec la queue. Là, les followers vont donc répondre, eux aussi peuvent répondre avec des choop notes ou pas répondre du tout et commencer directement leur séquence vocale, leur séquence de chant. Et une fois en fait que le duo ou le chœur est fini, ils peuvent utiliser des soft calls pour renforcer les relations entre le groupe, pour réduire le stress, etc. Et là, actuellement, j'étudie le rythme des individus. Donc, j'aimerais savoir s'ils sont capables, dans le groupe, d'adapter leur rythme en fonction de ce que font les autres participants. Et aussi, j'aimerais savoir si les duos et les chœurs, les caractéristiques acoustiques, donc le rythme de chant et la durée des duos et des chœurs, peut être adapté en fonction de la menace qui est perçue. Voilà.
We deploy several units to record